Hello and welcome. Welcome to Healthy You Class 5. So we're almost at the finish line, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about food skills. So we talked a little bit about it last week, but today we're going to focus more on being supermarket savvy. So what it means when you go to the grocery store, what to look for, what are some tips and some tricks. And we're also going to be talking about label reading as well, since that's really important when you're choosing what ingredients you want in the grocery store. So my name is Tasha Reitlis. I work with the Chatham-Kent Community Health Centers, and I am a dietitian there. So I will be presenting this week, Class 5. If you want to, you can turn to page 92 in your workbook, and that's where this week will begin. So before we go into this week and the learning goals, we also want to take a look back at last week. So last week we talked a little bit about the importance of fluids and how we can get more. We talked about volumetrics to help us feel full and satisfied after our meals. And we also talked about using volumetrics to help, we talked about volumetrics and we talked also about the benefits of meal planning and tips and tools to get you started. Now, meal planning is going to be very important for this week since it's important for you to plan your meals before you go to the grocery store in order to know what you need to purchase. So I hope you took away a lot of tips and tricks from last week so then we can apply it to this week when we're looking at what we're going to purchase at the grocery store. And last week, all that was presented to you by Hillary Stevenson. So thank you, Hillary. So before we get into this week, reflect on the goal that you set last week. So kind of ask yourself, how did it go? What did I set? Was it a SMART goal? Was it specific, measurable, action oriented, realistic, time oriented? Um, If you want to, you can pause right here and kind of go over that. And then if you need to change that goal, go ahead. And if you need to modify it a little bit more, go ahead and do that. So you can pause. So this week we're going to be talking about supermarket savvy, like I said, and label reading 101. So we're going to look at how to decipher all the information on a food packaging. What does that mean? How can we compare it? What type of psychological tricks do they use when we're grocery shopping that might make us buy more without even knowing it, right? Being supermarket savvy, looking at impulse buying, right? Also looking at saving food costs and reducing food waste. So talk briefly about that as well. Tips for being more budget friendly and reducing your food waste. And then tips to make your food last longer at home. So some ideas on what you can do to store your food appropriately when you're at home. So label reading 101. So we're now going to go through the basics of how to read a label to help you feel more confident when you're making healthy choices when shopping. So there can be a lot of information on a food product, and much of it is advertising because their end goal is to make money, to sell a product. So we have to know the three main areas of the label, and we have to know how that relates to us and our health and our goals that we're trying to achieve. So the ingredient list is going to tell us what's in the package item. The nutrition facts table is going to provide us with the calories and 13 core nutrients. And it's going to also help us compare products more easily. It's going to help us find out about what the nutrient content of the product is, and maybe if there's higher or lower amounts of a certain nutrient. And then we're also going to go in nutrient claims. So we have the nutrient content claims and the health claims. So the nutrient content claims tells us about one nutrient, so it might be like sodium, fat, or sugar, while the health claims tells how it can affect your health, right? So to start off with is the ingredient list. So if you haven't already, I'd say pause this video right here, right now. Go and grab maybe about two packaged products in your house, packaged food product, so that you can take your time and look at those packaged products as we go and we learn about the different components of the food label. So go ahead, go pause, and then come back when you get them. Did you get them? I hope you got them. So we're going to start out, like I said, with the ingredient list. So the location of it on the product can really vary. It doesn't really matter, but it will be listed on there. So they're listed in order of weight. So what's closest to the top is going to be the most by weight, and then you'll see as the other products that don't contain as much in that product, they're going to be lower down. So it's really important to know kind of what the main ingredients are of that product. And sometimes you'll see things like here you can see with the chocolate chips, it also has it in brackets and then it lists that ingredient. So sugar, cocoa mass, cocoa powder, cocoa butter, emulsifiers, all that within that too. Okay, so sometimes you'll see complex ingredients kind of broken down a little bit further. Some ingredients might seem intimidating and sound like added chemicals, but many are actually quite harmless. So if you see in the second label right there, you can see the enriched macaroni has a lot of scientific sounding ingredients. But most of these are just minerals and vitamins and have been added to the food to make it more nutritious. So it's kind of how we add iodine to salt, or we might add vitamin D to milk. So similar things. And sometimes the reverse can be done by making a processed food sound more natural. So they might say like beet or cane extract, when those are both just another name for added sugar. So we also can see that below the ingredients, it shows allergies that it contains or it may contain. So that's really important since there's a lot of people with allergies out there. And it usually contains, say, like the top 8 allergens. So if it has milk, eggs, fish, wheat, soybeans, you name it, it will be in that listed right underneath the ingredients. Okay, so take some time, look at your label, see if maybe there's any allergies it may contain or it contains any products there. See what is listed closest to the top of the ingredient list, what's listed furthest, and kind of take a look there. You're looking at that label, other things to consider are other words that might mean sugar. So there's a couple of different lists right there on the screen. You can see them all listed. So sometimes what they'll do is they'll use different types of sugar and they'll break it apart so that they're not all heavy and they're lower in the ingredient list, making the product look like it's less sugar dense. But what we hope to see is for them to actually group all the added sugars together, so then its weight will be higher than having the weight of each separate sugar ingredient if more than one sugar is added to that product. Next, we're going to look at the nutrition facts table. So this is the white box. It's usually found on the side of a food product. And this is a part that I really look at the most. And I hope that through this, you're able to utilize the nutrition facts table more if you're not currently using it. So when we're looking at it, there is one area that we definitely want to look at first. Can you think what that area is? Where do we want to look first on the nutrition facts table? Yes, that's right. Want to look at the serving size. So the serving size shows us that those 13 nutrients that are listed below are for that amount of the food. It might not be the entire package, but that specific amount. And also remember that that isn't the portion size that you should have. You might actually eat more or even less than that serving. So that portion is set by the food guide. And it doesn't mean that that's the standard portion size you should have. And as I had said, it's for those 13 key nutrients. So as you can see, it has the calories, the fats, carbohydrates, protein, cholesterol, sodium, and so on listed underneath. So these are what's required to be on You may see a little bit more on some products if they wanted to advertise it in a certain way, but they don't necessarily need any more than that. Okay. And also you can see with the fats and the carbohydrates that there's ingredients underneath, not ingredients, sorry, nutrients underneath that are indented. And what that means is that is a portion of what's bolded up top. So if we went to carbohydrates, it says 26 grams, and then sugars, it says 22 grams. So what that shows is 22 grams of that 26 grams of carbohydrates are from sugars. Thus, 4 more grams of carbohydrates. As you can see, it's not from fiber, so it's probably from starch. Okay, so now we're going to look at the percentage daily values. So it's right there on the right side, and that's a very useful tool when comparing if there's a little or a lot of a nutrient. As you can see below, it says 5% or less is a little, and 15% or more equals a lot. So definitely there's some nutrients that you're going to want, a lot of. So fiber, you're definitely going to want a lot of that. You're going to want maybe a lot of calcium or iron, and then you might want a little bit of sugar, right? And that saturated and trans fat, you want a little of that. So that will help you compare to see if it's a little or a lot. And also remember the percentage daily value are based on an average person eating about 2,000 calories per day. So you may eat more than that, you may eat less than that. So it's just a rough idea to see if it's something you should or shouldn't consider, and maybe there'll be a better product out there for you. Next, we're going to move on to nutrient content claims. So examples are the ones you can see listed. So in terms of health claims, there's 2 types. There's nutrient claims and health claims. And there are many different nutrient content claims that can be made, each with specific criteria. So all legal nutrient and health claims that can be put on food can be found on the Health Canada website. So some examples of nutrient claims may be when something says trans fat free, there needs to be less than 0.1 gram of trans fat per serving. If it's low sodium, it needs to have less than 140 milligrams or less per serving. And if it's light, it has to be 25% less calories than the original. But light can also be referred to color, like light in color. So be careful there if you do see light. Here's an example of a health claim on a label. This is a healthy diet with adequate calcium and vitamin D and regular physical activity help to achieve strong bones and may reduce the risk of osteoporosis. Yogurt is a good source of calcium. So with these health claims, they have to refer to a specific key nutrient, its impact on the certain health condition, and then the food that has that specific nutrient. Other claims might include sodium and its relation to cardiovascular disease, saturated trans fat, and heart disease, vegetables and fruits with reducing cancer risk, and if a food, the content of the sugar, and if that will or will not cause tooth cavities. So those are some other health claims that can be found on labels. And so I want you to take a look on the labels that you have and see maybe if there's a health claim on your label. There might be, there might not be. This isn't mandatory, but people usually, if they can, they'll put it on and it'll help sell their product. So now we're going to the supermarket. So learning how to navigate the supermarket. So when you go to the supermarket, they're usually set up similar to this, right? Around the outside is usually where the perishable foods are. So you're going to find fruits and vegetables, meats and dairies, staples such as milk and eggs, and so forth. And then the interior parts, you're going to have more of those convenience foods, fats and oils, snack foods, beverages, and other foods. So when you're navigating through, you want to be aware of some of the tips and tricks they use to get you to spend more money. So they might say things offers like 2 for 1 instead of 50% off. And sometimes the unit price of just buying the one would be the same as buying two. Um, so you just have to take a look at that as well. A simple sign that might say buy some for the freezer would be more effective than just putting buy. I know before COVID there was taste testing, so that might make individuals, especially if you go to the grocery store hungry, more likely to buy certain foods. You can also find a lot of the staples at the back of the store. So if you were missing, some milk, egg, a bread, you have to run through the store in order to get those products, thus opening your eye to other products that are on sale or something that might catch your attention, and it might get you to buy more food than you expected to. Also, shelf location. So when you're getting in the middle of the aisle, what they really like is anything from your waist to your eye level and above. These usually sell more, and these are the most desirable space in the grocery store. So if you're looking for a bargain or maybe even a better deal, you kind of want to look high or look low. You might find adult cereals such as high fiber ones on the higher shelves, while kids cereals might be a little bit lower, placed at the kids' eye level, so that when they're going through, they can grab it and add it to the shopping cart if the parent isn't looking, okay? So shelf location is really important. Also, some stores might have scents. They might have freshly baked goods. So when you stroll in there, it gets your stomach churning. Then you're going to be more apt to buy, something sweet or tasty or something you just didn't plan on buying. And then they have the end of aisle specials. So I know for me, when I go to, say, Costco, I always look at the end of the aisle because there's usually everything that's on sale in the paper is listed there. So also be careful of those, and some specials might not actually be that great of a discount. So be careful. You might be able to find it cheaper elsewhere. And then when you're going at the checkout, there's a lot of impulse buys. I don't know about you, but I see a lot of gum, a lot of chocolate, candy, gift cards, magazines, anything that, maybe your little ones are going to pick up and throw in the cart, or it might just attract you and you might want to pick it up and throw it in the cart. So when you are going to a supermarket or a grocery store, you want to make sure that you stick to your shopping list. Making sure that you plan before and you write down what you need is going to be really important. And you stick to that list as best as you can. Another thing is making sure you eat before you go, so you're less likely to impulse shop. Also, you might use an app that'll help you with purchasing. So Flip is a good app. I like using it. I can easily see what's on sale when I'm in the grocery store, but you can also do it offline or when you're at home, and then maybe take screenshots and bring them to you when you go shopping if you need it. So you can actually make a shopping list there on certain apps. So take a look around. You want to get to know your supermarket. So if you don't know your supermarket, you might have a harder time finding things, which might make you go back in aisles more often, might increase your time at the supermarket, and therefore spending more money. Okay. And sometimes even so, supermarkets will move where they place things. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but I sure have. But I knew where things were, and when I was getting there, I noticed they moved it all around. So sometimes they move things around to get you to kind of trek through their store a little bit more so that you can buy more as well. You also want to look beyond eye level on this shelf. So, yep, definitely look up, look down, look around. Be aware of those checkout temptations. So stick to your shopping list. And if you really get tempted at checkout, maybe choose a time where it's quieter. You can find these online. For example, if you Google your supermarket and you look in the right section, it'll show you actually when's the busiest time and when's the least busiest for the days of the week. So choose the least busy time if you're really tempted at checkout. Be aware of misleading price labels. So sometimes um, they do little tricks. They might say like great buy, but it might not be on sale. Okay? They might put limit for when it's not really a sale. It might be regular price, but people will think it's a sale and buy more. Um, Read the fine print for something. So sometimes a unit price is actually cheaper than what might be considered a sale. So sometimes the bigger products are a little bit cheaper per unit, even when the smaller ones are on sale. So take a look at all those. Shop locally and buy in season. Definitely gonna help, especially here in Chatham-Kent where we have so many fresh produce. You want to buy in season as much as you can, and locally you can find little farmer stands on the side of the road. Sometimes those are really affordable too. All right, so right now we're going to take a little break. I know I've been talking for about 20 plus minutes now, so I'm going to need a break too. I'm going to have to drink some water and then we'll reconvene. So go ahead, go pause, and we'll get back and we'll talk a little bit more about being supermarket savvy. Oh, welcome back. So now we're going to talk about different food categories when we're grocery shopping, what to look for, some tips and tricks, some ideas there. So you can see them all laid out here. Um, and remember to have your food labels. So these will be really useful. You can always pause and take a look at your food label during this presentation. Okay. So we're going to start with fruits and vegetables in the top left-hand corner in orange. So Canada's Food Guide recommends half a plate of veggies and fruits. So it's really important. They're really nutrient dense. And most of our fruits that we do go to purchase, we want to be from this section because the more we have, the more likely we will consume at least half of our plate. Okay. And some healthier ways to prepare them are things like boiling and broiling, barbecuing, roasted, or raw. So anything where you don't really add anything else to it when you're preparing is the best. And some time-saving tips might be washing them. Maybe sometimes if you're really low on time, you can find some that are already chopped or cut up and prepped. So that might be really helpful, or doing that right as you get home. Next, we're going to go to the deli section. So here you find lots of meats and cheeses. So you don't want to spend as much time here because meats and cheese tend to be higher in fat and sodium. So those two things, they can raise our blood pressure. They can increase our risk of cardiovascular disease. So we definitely want to limit our intakes at the deli section. So some deli alternatives, if you're looking for things to send to school or work or some lunch ideas, you might use an egg salad instead of getting deli meat, a tuna or salmon salad, maybe some leftover meats from a meal. So if you made a really big piece of chicken or turkey, you can put those in a sandwich. You can put it also in a wrap as well. You might use meat alternatives, so maybe like hummus, or maybe you made a bean patty or a bean burger, um, or even tofu. You can put those in your sandwiches as well. Okay. For cheese, you want to look for ones that are lower in fat, so if possible, 20% or less of milk fat. And maybe you can also look for some naturally lower fat cheeses, so something like goat cheese, ricotta, or mozzarella, right? And moderation is really important. So we have to remember that one serving of cheese is about the tip of our thumb. So that's 1 ounce. So we definitely have to be careful because we can easily have several servings without even really noticing it. The next part is a protein for animals. So when we're looking at protein, we want to think about what one serving size of meat is. So it's about the palm of your hand and the thickness of your pinky finger. Another way to think about it is about the size of a computer mouse. It's about one serving size. So a lot of times within a typical North American diet, can overeat on our protein intake, especially from animals. And if you go back to Canada's Food Guide, it should only be about a quarter of our plate. So not the main focus, but more of a side of the plate, right? What we want to choose, we want to choose protein that's leaner and fat. So maybe looking for skinless chicken breasts, fish, maybe round or loin steak or extra lean ground meat, whether it's ground beef or ground poultry. Okay, and when you're looking for meats, also look for less marbling because marbling is essentially the fat. So the less fat there is, the better it is going to be for you. And if you don't have any significant concerns, such as like diabetes or cholesterol concerns, you might look at eggs too. So an egg a day is typically okay for the majority of us. And really it's the egg yolk that's a concern. So if you do have some health concerns in regards to that, you can limit the amount of egg yolk you have, but still include the egg white for a delicious meal. Next, we can go to vegetarian proteins. So sometimes with vegetarian proteins, it's easy to get the processed one. So getting that already made, veggie burger, veggie sausage, veggie package. But really, you want to look for ones that are not as processed. And the reason why is because with the process comes a lot of salt. And then that will increase our salt intake. So you can look for less processed meat substitutes such as tofu, tempeh, edamame, since those will definitely be less high in salt than the processed ones. Next, we go to breads and baked goods. So typically when you're looking at breads, you want to look at the size. So some breads are a lot thicker or even just longer and bigger. And they're usually listed in the nutrition facts table by weight, so you'll be able to see what the weight is per slice. You want to look for those that are whole grain, whole wheat. If it's enriched, it means that it was added back, the nutrients were added back in, while whole grain, whole wheat, it was left completely intact. And you want it to be one of the first ingredients listed. Okay. Also, there's things like designer fibers. So this is like when they add in certain fibers like inulin or they're a smart product. So right now there is inadequate research to show that adding isolated fibers, such as say chicory root, have the same health benefits as a naturally occurring intact fiber that's found in whole foods, such as whole grains, legumes, nuts, vegetables, and fruit. So in some people, these isolated fibers can cause more side effects, such as maybe gas or bloating. And the highly processed and the highly refined foods that are typically added to are, are, are lacking in nutrients. So it's best to get it more naturally found in the food than to get one where it's added back in. So next we're going to go to cereals and grains. So as we talked about, you have to look high for when you're in the cereal aisle. So you might find something cheaper, might be healthier up there. Also, sometimes you might find something that's a little bit more cost efficient. Okay, you can look low as well. Those might have more of the regulars like Special K, Rice Krispies or Corn Flakes. Those tend to be more on the bottom shelf. And some smart picks for cereals is looking at like Shreddies, shredded wheat, all bran, corn bran, Weetabix, Alpen, and even just plain oatmeal. When you're looking at them, you also want to make sure that they have fiber. So ideally, you want 4 or more grams of fiber per serving in your cereals and 8 or less grams of sugar per serving. So those would be the best to look at. When you're looking at crackers, you want less than 3 grams of fat per serving. And ideally whole grain. So some smart picks for crackers are going to be like the PC Blue Menu wheat, sesame, or Vita or Cavalli crackers. And when you're looking at pasta and rice, choose more of the whole wheat pasta, the brown rice, and the long grain rice. So we did talk a little bit about those smart designer fibers in the breads. Well, similar thing to pasta Okay. And then if you're looking at gluten-free pasta, it's not necessary if you don't have, say, celiacs or a gluten intolerance. Um, so I would stick more with just a regular pasta if you don't have those conditions. But if you do, then definitely choose the gluten-free. Next, we go to dairy. So I know at one time we were recommending having no fat dairy. So basically like skim milk and skim yogurt made from skim milk. But now we know that a little bit of fat is okay. So just make sure that you choose lower fat milk. So like maybe 1% or 2% over that whole milk, which is, I believe it's 3.25%. Don't quote me on that. And then when you're choosing your yogurt, similar thing. So you definitely want it to be like 2% or less. If you find your yogurt's really creamy, and it's just a regular yogurt, say it's not a Greek yogurt or a high protein yogurt, then it might be higher in fat. So make sure you check those labels as we talked about before. And as well, if you're looking for milk alternatives, soy milk is going to be your best bet. I know a lot of people don't like soy milk, but there's many different varieties. So take a look around. If the first one you choose you don't really like, try another. And the reason why soy milk is important is because it has the similar amount of protein as cow's milk. All the others don't. They have about 1 gram of protein per serving. So we definitely want to stick to the soy or to the cows if possible. And you want to make sure that your milk alternative has added calcium. So that it's fortified with calcium. So you're getting that nutrient in. Okay. Next, we're going to go to package and canned foods. So when we're looking at package and canned foods, one of them that comes to mind is salad dressing, right? So you definitely want to choose oil-based over cream-based, and you can also make your own at home. So salad dressing is usually about 2 parts oil and 1 part vinegar. Then you can add in any flavor you like. So maybe some lemon juice, some Dijon mustard, ginger, maybe a little bit of honey or maple syrup, anything like that. If you're going to choose soups, be very careful. You definitely want more broth-based soups over cream soups, since the cream soups will likely be high in fat content. But soups in general tend to be high in sodium content. So look for one, if you can, no salt added, but lower salt added or salt reduced is definitely going to be a better option than the regular. But it still may be high in sodium. So take a look at that label. And homemade is the best, but you can boost the nutrients of canned soup. So if you are getting canned soup, you could consider adding in frozen or fresh vegetables in there, and even beans. So lentils are pretty easy to throw in, or if you had any canned legumes, those are pretty easy to throw in to increase the nutrient density of the soup. Okay. When you're looking in the frozen aisle, so frozen, especially frozen vegetables and fruits, they can have the same nutrients as fresh since they're flash frozen. So it doesn't take them long to freeze, so it's frozen at the peak of ripeness and freshness. So you have a good product there. And a lot of times frozen may actually be cheaper. So don't dismiss it. Definitely keep it in consideration when you're looking for fruits and or vegetables. When you're looking for frozen protein foods, you might want to look for, say, maybe some unseasoned, say like chicken breasts or some fish fillets that aren't seasoned. You can also look for edamame that you can easily boil up and have as a snack as well. So what you definitely want to be careful of is though frozen meals. So frozen meals usually are really high in sodium. So actually you want to look for some that are less than 500 milligrams. And those are really hard to find. Okay, so if you're looking at some better frozen meal options, maybe consider Lean Cuisine, Crazy Plates, PC Blue Menu, Healthy Steamers, but still take a look at that label because they're really hard to find ones that are low in sodium, and often at times they might be high in saturated and or trans fats as well. So if you're looking for some frozen treats, some healthier alternative, you could consider making your own using frozen fruits. You can put fruit with plain yogurt as well, or freezing plain yogurt with fruits. You can blend it up, make like a smoothie or a blended frozen banana, or maybe even just having frozen fruits like seedless grapes or banana slices or blueberries. So all of those are pretty good to have if you're looking for something that's cold to kind of feel your crave. And then for snacks, so not everyone needs snacks in their diet. Some individuals have to snack throughout the day, some don't. If you're looking for some healthy snacks, you might want to consider like low-fat popcorn, flavored rice crackers, maybe baked tortillas or veggies with dip. I know normally when we think of snacks, we think of things like cookies, chips, and granola bars, but you can always reinvent your snacks. And maybe even something like trail mix might give you a new taste of a snack. Okay. And then we're coming close to the end of this list, so we come to the beverages. So beverages, there's usually kind of four categories. There's pop, diet drinks, fruit juice, vegetable juice. I would say stick more with water if possible. Pop has a lot of sugar. In fact, about 10 teaspoons per one can. That's quite a bit. And also, diet drinks, they use sweeteners, and there might be some health concerns. So there's still more research that needs to be done, and they're definitely look into that to see what exactly is happening. Fruit juice, it might sound like a great and better option than say pop, but at the same time, it's still pretty high in sugar. So the serving for fruit juice is actually a half a cup. So it's best if you dilute those, and vegetable juice, if you're looking like at a V8 or something like that, those tend to be high in sodium. So I would say stick with water, herbal teas, maybe flavor your own soda water by adding in lemon. You can add in cucumber, mint, or ginger, or have a cup of milk. So those probably will be your best option there. And then when you're checking out, don't be tempted. I know there's a lot of temptations, things that easily catch your eye, and after going through all that work, finding everything you need at home and almost at the finish line, don't don't fall now. If it wasn't on your list, don't get it. If it is, that's a different story. So we do have tips for grocery shopping. So it's just similar, some of the stuff that I just spoke about, and that is in your workbook. So that's going to be listed on page 100. Take a look. If there's something that you want a refresher, or maybe I missed out on, take a look there. And that's definitely going to give you some tips on what to look for when you are grocery shopping. And then remember, there's other places to find healthy food. You don't only have to shop at at the supermarket. You can shop at the farmer's market. You can shop at a wholesale warehouse, good food box. So what happens with that is you get different vegetables and fruits and produce, and you just pay one price, and you get that, say, per schedule. So if it's monthly or so. There's community gardens and community kitchens. So I know that there's community gardens all throughout Chatham, Kent. Um, we also have the Buy Local, Buy Fresh Chatham, Kent. So that website is Buy Local, Buy Fresh, chathamkent.com. And I've listed the map right out there. And those are all the different places that you can buy from, different farmers markets or different farms that's selling directly off their farm. So definitely check that out if you haven't. And another place is your own yard. So don't be afraid to grow your own food. Grow those strawberries, grow those onions, grow those potatoes, sunflower seeds, whatever. You can grow them in your garden and have fresh and healthy food, and you know exactly where it came from. I have listed here, so this is from the Buy Local, Buy Fresh, and we are so privileged to be in Chatham, Kent, since we are since we produce a lot of produce here. So there are many great reasons to buy local. And you can see here many of the things that we're the number one producer of. So pumpkins, cucumbers, green peas, tomatoes, carrots. Okay. So definitely look around in your own backyard, check out your own farms, and go to the local farmers market. You're going to find a lot of great things and meet a lot of great people. And then this is also on that website, the Buy Local, Buy Fresh, and it shows you what's in season. So if you can remember, I said stick with what's in season because that's going to be more cost efficient. Plus, you're probably going to get it at a better price. And it's going to just be better ripeness, better freshness, better flavor, better nutrient value all in all. So this is listed on the site, so you can go and take a look, see what month it is, and go ahead and see what would be best for you to buy now. And then when we go grocery shopping, when we go in with a plan and we know what we need and we know what we're going to prepare, we're less likely to waste food. So here you can see that the average Canadian household spends $1,766 each year on wasted food. And most of it is vegetables. So I know you've all have thrown away some celery at one point in your life, right? So sometimes we just forget about it. We don't see it. It's hidden back there, right? So we definitely want to make sure we rotate the produce. We write down what we have left. We write down what we're planning to make with our meals. And if we don't think we're going to eat something within the next couple days, we can probably freeze it, right? Use it for a soup later or a stir fry later. But go ahead and you can freeze it. And if you know how to can, go ahead and you can can it as well. So this right here is a great video that talks about ways to reduce food waste at home. We have talked about some of them. So the link is right there. So if you want, you can pause, take your time, write it down. And if you just want to look for the video on YouTube, it's called 5 Ways to Reduce Food Waste at Home, and it's by Nourishable. So you can also just look it up on YouTube if you don't want to write down that link. And then this, knowing how long a food will last is definitely going to help you with reducing food waste. So if you look in your workbook, this is listed on page 104. And a lot of times you might look at the best before date, but that does not mean that that product is bad after that best before date. You can still use a lot of products after that best before date. Okay, so definitely refer back to this if you need to as well. And then freezing and frozen foods can definitely save you money. So I know we talked about buying frozen fruits and vegetables and how those may be cheaper, right? So if you bought a lot and you don't think you're going to use them up within the time frame, go ahead and go freeze them. I know when I use, for example, tomato sauce, I will freeze the leftovers and then I can use it the next time that I need it. There's only some foods that might not be the best if frozen, and that's something like eggs. So eggs and maybe like lettuce, right? But most other things work well if they are frozen. Enjoy cooking and eating together as a family or as a unit. You want to cook at home more often. You are controlling what's in the food, the nutrient density. You want to focus on fresh in-season foods. We have the Foodland Ontario Availability Guide, so you can see what's in season, or you can go back to that Buy Local, Buy Fresh, Chatham Kent website as well. And yeah. So thank you for coming and listening to me speak about being supermarket savvy and learning about label reading. So take this time to think about a goal, something that you think you want to do differently within the next week or two. It might be something as I'm going to create a grocery list for my meal plan, or maybe you're going to try label reading on some of your favorite food items, or maybe it's a new recipe and getting those ingredients you need for the new recipe. So I definitely want you to try that and bring whatever you did this week to next week. And next week, we're going to bring everything all together. So we're going to be talking about preventing relapse and how to manage challenging eating situations. So next week is the last week for this program, but we're looking at doing a celebration. And if they haven't told you more about it, we'll tell you more with it by next week. And we hope that you all can join us. So if you have any questions, feel free to email Isabel and we'll be able to answer you and get back to you. And we can also answer your questions next week. So I hope that you had a good time, that you learned a lot today, that you were able to look at your own food labels and compare the nutrients. And I can't wait to see you next week and hear what's done.